Many consumers aren't aware, but the supplement industry is filled with products that don't live up to their label claims. This lack of regulation can lead to underdosed products, or worse, products that contain ingredients not listed on the label. The core of the problem lies in the manufacturing standards. The supplement industry often operates under very uncontrolled conditions. This isn't just a quality issue, it's a matter of consumer trust and safety. At DY Nutrition, we've recognized these industry shortcomings and refused to let our products fall into this category. We've shifted all our manufacturing processes to comply with pharmaceutical-grade good manufacturing practices. This isn't standard practice in the supplement industry, but we believe it should be. It's about ensuring our products are safe, effective, and truly beneficial for our customers. Consuming supplements that don't match their labels can have serious implications. It's not just about not getting what you pay for or failing to see results. It's about the potential health risks of unknown or mislabeled ingredients. This undermines the entire purpose of taking supplements. Our adoption of GMP is a step towards setting a new standard in the supplement industry. We want to lead by example and show that it's possible to produce supplements that are both effective and safe. This commitment to quality and transparency is what the industry needs, and it's what the consumers deserve. At DY Nutrition, we're not simply manufacturing supplements. We're making a tangible impact. Through our unwavering adherence to pharmaceutical-grade GMP, every product that we offer embodies our dedication to excellence, safety, and the health of our customers. This commitment reflects both my personal ethos and our brand's commitment to superior supplement manufacturing standards, emphasizing the importance of consumer safety and product integrity in the nutritional supplement industry. All right, so we're talking about your YouTube channel and how it started, and because I became aware of it, I guess a few years ago. I started watching a lot of stuff on there, more about the performance enhancing stuff that was interesting because we had very little information, you know, back in the 80s and the 90s and so on. So,
how did you go about having to curate all that information, by the way?
Yeah, well, I guess it's, so go back to the 80s is really where bodybuilding, so I got involved, but it was the start of the gym explosion, you know, the culture, the popularity of going to the gym. And I guess steroids came a bit more to the forefront because more people are training, but it was still very much an inner circle thing. You know, it's not like now, like steroids, performance enhancing drugs is household terms, you know, that everyone's familiar with. And
so back then, was it like you asked your gym bro?
Gym bro.
Hey, dude.
And then I was just telling my friend, because he wasn't very familiar with the channel, but I was like, so in a way, this is the Dan Duchesne of 2020.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know who Dan Duchesne was.
I would never claim to be as influential as him, but yeah, that's flattering.
Well, you're a little bit more, how do I say, a little bit more educated and rational than Dan was. It was a crazy man, but you know, that's what we had. Anabolic handbook, underground steroid handbook. That was the first one. And that was
so was this was it like a guide that everyone suggested immediately? If you said, I want to take performance enhancing drugs, steroids, they'd say, oh, you got to get this book. And then
pretty much.
Kinda...
but it was like, you know, it looked like it was photocopied and stapled together. It was just a raw pamphlet, but it was passed around from person to person, or you ordered it in a magazine or something like that. So that was really the only thing out that was, you know, realistic. I mean, he was on the ground with the guys in Gold's Gym that were training, so he knew what was going on. And then you had Anabolic Steroids in Sports by Jim Wright, but that was more like, he told me, actually, I met him afterwards, he worked for the military, so he said I had to be very conservative in what I said. So that was more like information, but not practically like, yeah, but how much do I take and how do I take it? So that was, I guess, word of mouth, and we knew less, so probably a little bit more cautious.
Was there anything that you thought might have been correct from those books that you tried that turned out to be completely wrong, or was it all pretty aligned with what ended up working for you?
I mean, it's pretty much aligned. I mean, some of the information has probably changed, but he pointed out certain compounds aromatize into estrogen, so they would retain more water and possibly harder to lose fat, and some don't, and all that kind of stuff. And I think when I first started, everyone was like kind of concerned about liver toxicity. That was the thing, which turned out to be like not really an issue after all these years. I mean, it could be, I guess, if you really abuse something, but ordinarily it's not.
Yeah, I'm sure over the years you probably heard of less guys dropping from liver failure and more from cardiovascular
Yeah,
disease than
absolutely.
anything.
I've never known, I don't think I've known anybody. I know a few guys that got liver symptoms. You know, they kind of jaundice and yellowing in the eyes and stuff from taking too many anapolons, it's anadrols they're called in the States, you know. Liver toxic, and if you pile up the milligramage, it's to high levels. But when they stopped, it went away, kind of thing. So it's definitely it's turned out to be heart disease is the over the long what we observed.
So in the 80s and 90s, if the primary concern was liver issues, was there any cognizant like attention being paid towards the use of orals? Because it seemed like it was more prevalent, despite the fact that people were at least aware of liver issues, or was it just not known that orals are worse than injectables?
No,
So people just use whatever they could get.
That's the thing that we understood, that it processed through the liver as you die. You know, it's going through your digestive system, so it's putting some stress on your liver. But I was probably one of the only people that I knew that was actually having blood tests, so I could see what was going on. And that's why I like your channel and channels like that. It's just getting information out there. You know, correct, truthful information, and people can you then make informed decisions, make their own decisions. And that's my belief on anything, whether it's performance-enhancing drugs or recreational drugs or whatever. Let's just look at it. Let's try to get all the information out without any judgment, and people can make their own decisions. You know, we're responsible adults, hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's ideally what in general, my content does derive back to things I wish I knew when I was younger to not mess myself up or improve my quality of life, avoid, the progressive, just the aging process in general, to offset neurodegeneration, heart issues, anything of that nature. If I could protect somebody who is going to go down the performance enhancing road, or just somebody who's, the average guy who wants to stay healthy, that's kind of what a lot of my content surrounded around, trying to make it as entertaining as possible, I suppose. And that's kind of where the inception of More Plates, More Dates was stuff that I felt like was a hole in the industry to some extent, things that weren't widespread and well known that should be. Stuff as basic as checking your blood pressure was not common knowledge, despite it being obvious now, when I started taking.
I think I get the feeling that sometimes people don't really want to know, because if something's wrong, then they have to, it's like a situation where they've got to confront it and make a decision and maybe change things. And I think oftentimes people, at least in my experience in the past, don't really want to know, I'm in the middle of something here, like I'll check later or something like that. But I mean, it's better to be informed, right?
How easy was it to get blood testing back in the 90s?
Yeah, interesting question. So, I did my first competition, no steroids or anything like that. And then I'm like, I'm going to go into the IFBB just on an intermediate level, the first level. But even on my first competition, which was just local within the city where I lived, in a novice competition, the two guys that I beat, I mean, they're already using, right? But I managed to beat them. That's because of genetics, really. But I knew that, I'm going up another level, right? So I said, I'm going to start taking some stuff. And I went to see my local doctor. And he's like, oh, no, I mean, you don't want to take these things. And basically, he didn't really want to help me, It's like he thought that by helping me is like encouraging me to do something that I shouldn't be doing or something. And of course, he's a general practitioner or an MD, as they would call them in the States, I guess. So, he didn't know much anyway. It's just like, that's not good for you. That's bad. Anyway, so I took a little bit of stuff, a little bit of D-ball, and I changed to Anavar, going to the contest. It wasn't long. And I won my contest, and I went to... They picked me for the team for the World Games, and it was in London, and it was filmed. So they showed the opening of the World Games, which is like Olympic Games, all different sports, but they hadn't made it to the Olympics yet, so it's like one tier down, bodybuilding, powerlifting, I don't know, water skiing, all kind of stuff, right? So the opening ceremony was filmed on national TV. You know, there's 3 channels in UK at that time, so everyone like watched the main channels. And they filmed the opening, and the manager of the bodybuilding team was like, just go out there in the opening and take your tracksuit off and hit a few poses. You and a girl, like, repping the team. And of course, it's visual, right? It's bodies with everyone's looking. All the cameras come over. I got on TV, and I went to see my doctor again. He's like, wow, I saw you on TV and everything. So this is a real thing. This is you're serious. You're doing a sport and a career. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I was trying to tell you, you know? But the guy's used to dealing with underage pregnancies, drug addicts, and depression, and, you know, he didn't know what it was. But he was happy at that point just to do my blood test. But it was very basic. It was blood pressure, which was too high sometimes, cholesterol, liver, kidney function, and so on. So, yeah, sometimes the numbers were not perfect, but it was never anything where he was like, hey, this is too much. In fact,
did they ever do anything to manage it? Like, because you said your blood pressure came back high.
No, my blood pressure was too high, and I didn't think to take a medication to bring it down, and he didn't suggest it. And I don't know, I kind of thought, well, I'm already taking enough stuff anyway. I don't want to take another thing. So that, if I could do it again, yeah, I would have taken some medicine to bring it down into a normal range. That's what I should have done, but I didn't know, and nobody told me. So that's what I'm talking about. You know, if you have the information and you can manage these things, you're going to do it more safely.
Yeah, I think ultimately people are going to do it regardless is kind of my stance. So making sure they don't fuck themselves up is probably the best approach.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I try to warn people what they're getting into here, because there's a physical and there's also a psychological level to this, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting to talk about, because I'm like,
I think the effect on cognitive is overlooked for sure. Like, it can heavily influence your state of mind.
Trust me, I've been through my, I always said to myself, actually, I had a cutoff point when I did my first pro show. I'm like, if I don't place in the top 5 here, then that's telling me I'm not good enough to be a real, competitor and make a career out of this and be like Mr. Olympia or something, which is where it's at. So I'm taking a calculated risk, I suppose, as calculated as I can, in doing this, and I have to justify it to carry it on, and also other factors as well. If you're a competitive bodybuilder, time with your family and all other considerations, has to justify it if I'm going to continue to go on. And I went to do a pro career, and after the pro career, I said, I just take steroids for my career. So therefore, when I'm finished, I'm just stopping. That's it, right? So you can imagine the fallout from that, and I went to see the best guy I could see, an endocrinologist. I'm like, how do I manage this? And it was half like my wife, my ex-wife now, wanted to try for another baby as well. So we're looking into all this, and I'm like, what shall I do, some HCG or this and that? He just looked me in the eyes and said, Dorian, I think you know more about this than I do. I was like, fucking hell, thanks, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just went cold turkey for 18 months, and that was not fun until I figured it out. Hey, It's not
That was
bouncing. It's not bouncing back, you know.
noble of them to admit that. You know, a lot of
Yeah.
doctors would be like, get out of my office before they would ever say that you know more than them. So,
Well, you know, I don't know more about endocrinology, but I know more about bodybuilders using large amount of steroids and than he did. I mean, that's just his there family fertility clinic or
yeah.
something like that. So I didn't get much help there, and there's no internet. There's, I mean, England. There's not now. You probably got, you know, you got testosterone doctors like you have everywhere, but not in those days. So I kind of had to figure it out for myself while I'm feeling so shit.
Hmm.
Why I'm getting anxiety, why I can't sleep properly, and all this stuff because my testosterone was in whatever 200 or something, you know.
What age did you come off entirely?
35. So I did 12 years, like, you know, starting out very, very little and more, and then a pro career, right? I'm doing what I got to do kind of thing. But
Hmm.
I believe there is a cutoff point. I don't
Hmm.
know what you think, but, you know, benefit risk ratio, you get to a certain level and then it's not really getting any more benefit, but you're just increasing the chances of negatives and where that is.
Oh
Well,
yeah, there's
it
definitely
depends, right?
diminished returns at a certain level for sure. And I don't know how far you pushed it dosage wise, like you spoke to it in passing in certain podcasts
Yeah.
before, but if you ever did push it, I would imagine there was some threshold where you found, hey, I'm getting a lot less out of this incremental jump than I did at the previous incremental jump.
Yeah, you just it kind of plateaus out at some point, I think. And
What was the
going back,
threshold for you?
yeah, I was like, I mean, here's the question as well, and I don't know the answer. Um, but I tell people, like, when you start out, if you start out, if you make that decision, and that's your individual one, personally, knowing everything that I know, I don't think it's worth taking steroids unless you're like, you know, you want to compete or something. It's kind of something you should look into seriously. That's just my opinion, but, you know, it's up to everybody what they do. But once you get on this journey and you get bigger and you get stronger and you surpass what you could do without steroids, because there is kind of a what I call like a cutoff point. You know, when you're training naturally, you'll get to a point where you can't recover anymore, and you just plateau out, and that's it. So there is a ceiling which you take away by using steroids, and you get up to another level. But that's really temporary in nature.
Hmm.
You know, you cannot. I've had people try to do it. I'm like, I'm telling you, bro, you can't do it. I'm going to take some steroids. I'm going to put on 15 pounds of muscle, and then I'm going to come off. I'm going to train real hard and keep my diet, and I'm going to keep it. I'm like, nope, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: if your self worth is caught up in being that guy, you know, you're bigger now, you're stronger, you feel more confident. People seem to treat you with more different, like more respect or something. You're that guy now. This is you. This is your image. This is making you feel good, right? Now, when you come off and you start losing it, if that's what's making you feel good, and now it's drifting away. If you don't have your core somewhere else, not wrapped up in how big and strong you are, it's going to be a rough ride, and you probably it's like a roundabout. So you're on the roundabout, man. Be
Yeah.
careful when you're on the roundabout. It's hard to jump off, you know. So it almost
Yeah.
becomes it's like a psychological addiction, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And that's something I've spoke to in the past as and actually use you as like a primary example of somebody who had the mental fortitude to go from the pinnacle of a sport too. It's not just somebody who's
Yeah,
wrapped up in it, but somebody who's won like at the highest level and still was able to step back and downsize significantly and be content in that and emotionally secure in that. Like
yeah.
that's pretty
I'm
hard
hoping
for
it's.
a lot of guys.
I hope it is a message to people, and this was part of the, you know, like a whole crisis that I went through. Like literally, like who am I? You know, who am I? Am I this guy? This is it's like an image I'm living here, Mr. Olympia. So I had to go through all that and kind of find out who I was without all that, because it becomes like it's like a security thing, right? This is who I
Yeah.
am. This is what I'm good at. This is where I'm comfortable, and so I'll just stay there. But I
Yeah.
knew there's more. There was more things to my life, more things to do, more challenges, and that was one of the challenges. Like I actually was a few, I was keeping fairly 250, 260 or something, cruising along there. And then I went for a checkup. I noticed my blood pressure's going up, and I'm like, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm just going to lose weight, and I'm not fat anyway. So I went on a plant-based diet, 70 grams of protein a day, and we know what's going to happen, right? You're going to cannibalize a lot of muscle, but I don't know. I felt better. I felt better. My blood pressure was lower, and I had an interesting conversation with a medical specialist on this. He was a triathlete as well, and he had friends that were triathletes, and they were having heart attacks. So we're trying to figure out bodybuilders having heart attacks, endurance athletes, and they're not probably taking any PEDs. They may be, but not like a bodybuilder. So we kind of figured out it's the diet, you know.
I think in general,
Constantly eating.
Yeah, and losing the amount of tissue required, metabolically demanding tissue to support, like that's stressful on the body.
That's what I felt that, yeah, and I felt this is excess to my needs. If I'm keeping it, it's only for my ego. So I'm just, it seemed like everyone else was more like upset about it than I was.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Like, he's getting skinny, and this is Mr. Olympia, and the mass monster. And I'm like, I'm doing what I feel I need to do right now, and that's what I need to do.
If you tried to keep it all, there's a high likelihood you might not be here today. So,
well, here's the thing. I started to say this thing now because it came out once at a seminar, and I'm like, all you young guys asking me about, hey, you're not as big as before, and you miss it and all that stuff. I'm like, I got a question for you. How many 300-pound guys do you know at 70 years old? Anyone know a 300-pound 7-year-old guy? Put your hand up. No hands, right? That's why. Yeah. That's why. I was having this conversation with Russ Scala, and I was like, listen, excess body weight as you're getting older, it's muscle, it's fat. Is it really making a difference? And he was like, I don't think so. And I kind of come to that conclusion myself. Like, I could be carrying an extra 20 pounds, but for what? Like, I don't need to display my physique on a stage now to make money. That was my profession. That's why I did it. I didn't do it because I was already muscular and strong when I started. It was not like, hey, I need to, get bigger than my friends. I was already that guy anyway. So I did it as a career. But yeah, we were talking about that and the stress that it puts on your body as you get old, even if it's muscle. So I'm kind of glad I slimmed down, and I feel good. Heart, all the bloods are good and everything like that.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of, especially nowadays with social media, the pressure to maintain appearances is even higher probably.
Yeah.
Because every day in real time, you're getting told how much skinnier you look, every time you post on social media if you're a bodybuilder. So,
yeah, it's very stressful, social media, and everyone trying to maintain an image, which is not actually reality anyway. Everyone's show their best. This is my life. Well, so nothing goes wrong in your life, right? It's always good. That's not reality. But yeah, there's extra pressure. And in my day as well, it's like you only get seen at a competition. You only get seen at a competition or after a competition when you're in shape. You do a lot of pictures for the magazines, and they'll use them throughout the year. So you're not visible all the time. Like, fucking hell, do you see Yates has got a spot on his neck like today, and whatever, like, right?
No, what's crazy, an example of that at the most extreme is influencers that are at the gym, even now, they'll get spotted like paparazzi, and people will take pictures and videos of them. And then if they don't look as jacked as they're portrayed on
Yeah.
social media, they'll call them out and make content about it.
Well, I
Yeah, it's wild.
suppose, I mean, comes with the territory, right? If you
Yeah.
put yourself out there, that's, that's the world that's out there. So you take the good with the bad. But I personally, I'm really happy that I had my career when I had it, because I could be the shadow. I mean, I was. It's just me. I was not like no gimmick or image or anything. It was just me being me. But it would be difficult now because a lot of the income is reliant on constant exposure on social media and so on. If you're not there, like, you're not relevant, I guess.
How do you think you would fare in today's bodybuilding environment with, your peak physique back in the 90s, if you were to throw it into the mix?
Ah, man. I always get shit if anyone asks me this question. I'm like, listen,
Ah, you don't have to answer.
I didn't say anything. He asked me. Right? He asked me. Uh, Not a problem, man. I mean, the competition. Are you talking about Open Mr. Olympia? It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, I'm assuming that's what
It's not. It's not. It's not the same, man. It's not the same standard at all. I don't think.
in terms of like how lean people are getting, or because you think
It's
everything's too.
conditioning, and I think like when people ask me what's the change in the competitors? Why are they now like all the guys very short, and all the
Hmm.
guys don't have calves and they don't have forearms and all this stuff? I'm like, well, if you had 10 million people doing something, or 1 million people doing something, you'll have more outstanding genetic specimens in the 10 million than you would in the 1 million. And although much more people are going to the gym than they were, let's say, in the 90s when I was Mr. Olympia, more people going to the gym, more gyms, everything, but less people doing bodybuilding.
Hmm.
Yeah? In the 80s and the 90s, like, every dude wanted to be a bodybuilder. That was it. If you went to the gym, you wanted to be a bodybuilder, and you probably wanted to try competing as well. It was all quite new, and everybody was into it. Now there's like so many different avenues you can go down with fitness, and so many different categories and all the competitions and different things that didn't exist, like MMA and CrossFit, and it's a lot more avenues that a guy that's athletic or sporty could possibly go down. You got the classic Mr. Olympia. You got I don't know. There's tons of different classes. There was just one. There was just bodybuilding and Mr.
Hmm.
Olympia. So I think you just had more outstanding genetic specimens that were around at that point, all at one time. I mean, look, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Levrone, Ronnie Coleman. There's nobody that can match those guys in, like proportion, size, condition, the whole mix together.
Hmm.
And that's that's what I think. I think less people are wanting to compete in bodybuilding competitions, much less people. So of course, less people doing it, you're going to get less outstanding specimens, if you like.
Do you still follow the sport like pretty closely? Watched every
Yeah, man,
Open
a
Olympia?
little bit. I know who's competing and stuff like that. Milos Sasha even getting upset with me because he's like, yeah, you say you don't enjoy bodybuilding anymore, or going bodybuilding contests. I'm like, I didn't enjoy going to bodybuilding contest when I was Mr. Olympia. Yeah, I enjoyed training in the gym, and the contest
Hmm.
was a target for me to go and display what I'd done all year. That's the thing with bodybuilding. It's not the competition is not on the stage.
Hmm.
That's the end result. The competition is every day, in, day out, all year round. There's the competition that nobody actually sees. So that was the thing that I loved. That competition that's in the gym every day. I didn't like to go and watch guys on stage. I wasn't interested then, so I'm even less interested now. I got other interests and areas that the knowledge of bodybuilding, building muscle, nutrition, supplementation, even hormones, I'm interested now really primarily on not how can I get a guy to be in Mr. Olympia shape. I'm interested in how can I help the guy that's getting older and is having health problems, and I have the key to him having a much better, longer quality of life. And it's pretty simple. And that's where that's what I'm passionate about now, helping people to be a better version of themselves and building muscle, reversing the sarcopenia as they're getting older. That's one of the key things. And high protein diet that we learned through bodybuilding, and hormonal replacement if it's required as you get older. I've seen guys, I've helped guys. They're like, I've been born again. Like, what is this? Like, I feel amazing. Life is good. All my results on my blood tests have changed. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Your doctor didn't do that for you, did he? He didn't tell you how to do that. Because he doesn't know and he's not invested and he wasn't trained to do that. So,
do you do coaching now for
yeah,
that
I
stuff?
do. I mean, I do a little bit online, a little bit in a gym. Not because it's my profession. Obviously, I get paid to do it, but it's not my, it's not my main profession. It's not my main income, but I enjoy doing it as long as it's like limited amounts, because I'm very passionate when I'm in the gym. I give a lot of energy and I give a lot to people. If I was standing in the gym all day, you lose that, right? Lose that. I see personal trainers, they're burnt out. They're looking on the phone and, come on, 1, 2, 3. What am I doing for dinner tonight? Okay, It becomes like that. I don't want to be like that. So I train people. They come over here. I live in Spain. They come over and we do, 1 or a week or sometimes longer. And then I've had a few guys that are just friends of friends, out of shape. And I sit down and talk to them. I'm like, you can do this, this, and this. And they're like, all right, let me train with you for a month. And even after a month, they're like, oh, you're totally changed. And I've showed you how to do it now. I've unlocked inside of you. Like, everyone's got that thing, but you just got to unlock it in the gym. And they push and they overcome something. And they're like, wow, I did that. I'm like, yeah, you did that. Yeah, maybe because I'm shouting in your ear, but you did it. So, next time I'm not shouting in your ear, you can still do it. I just showed you. I just opened them, I opened the lock with the key, and there you are. You did it, though. You lifted the weight, so my hands are here, So you can do it. And you overcome something in the gym, then when you have some other problem, whatever, relationship, business, whatever it is, it's not, you can overcome things. So it's physical and mental, and I enjoy seeing, wow, look at this guy now, or whatever, this lady. Like, look at their potential, how they've changed, and I've been a part of that. I feel good about that. I don't feel so good about getting a guy ready for a competition. I don't have nothing against it. It's just not my interest at this point in time.
What brings you to Spain, of all places?
Yeah. You know what? I got a film crew coming over tomorrow, and I'm like, guys, we're going to do this because I get asked all the time, not by Europeans, but by Americans normally, why do you live in Spain? Well, I live in Spain on the south coast. It's called Costa del Sol, Marbella. And it's like it's in Spain, but it's like an expat. It's like a European community. So I know people live here for 20 years. They know about 2 words of Spanish. Like, English is the main language here. Everyone speaks English. So yeah. I try to be polite, learn a bit of Spanish, but I'm not too good at it because everyone just speaks English. So you got a lot of English people that kind of moved over here, a lot of Scandinavians, Russians, because it's the best weather in Europe. And we've got beaches, we've got mountains, beautiful nature, and also like we got a port here with like the most outrageous, most expensive yachts in the world, the supercars, like all that stuff. If you're into all that, I don't care about all that stuff, but that's there as well. So it's kind of very wealthy, a lot of designer stores and all that, and so it's got a bit of everything, and it just makes so much difference for me living in the sun. It's just much healthier for mentally and physically. It just every day is nice and sunny. I live by the beach. You know, I'm kind of enjoying kicking back a bit, if you like, and enjoying the fruits of my labor, thanks to the young Dorian that just kept his fucking blinkers on and, you know, trying to pull me. No, I'm going this way. And thanks to that guy and doing all that work back then, I can enjoy a nice, relaxed life in the sun. So that's why I live in Spain. I don't know, I guess if you lived in New York, you could like escape to Miami or something, you know? It's kind of like that coming from UK. So a lot of people here from UK and all over Europe. So yeah, it's a great place to live. It's kind of, I don't know, San Diego-y maybe, but a bit smaller.
Okay.
You know, people from the States are like, yeah, it's got that San Diego, bit Santa Monica-y, that kind of vibe.
Okay.
And we got some good gyms here.
All right. On. Do you train at a private gym or is it a public one?
Actually, I was involved in opening a gym here when I came years ago, and then I got out of it and somebody else is running it. But I got all the equipment from the States, like secondhand recon, because I don't like the
Is it
European.
all like old style heavy duty shit?
I don't know if you ever been to Venice Gold's Gym.
No, but I should.
Yeah, you should. I mean, it's not as it used to be, but it's still, you know, still Gold's Gym. But they got a lot of flex equipment in there. I mean, you got flex equipment now because somebody bought them up or whatever. But I'm talking about the original flex equipment. So if you go Gold's Gym, they got, I don't know, like 20 leg presses. But all the pros, all the guys that know, they all go on the same leg press, the old flex leg press and the flex leg extension. So we got flex equipment, we got some Nautilus, hammer, all that stuff, you know. Got the pullover, Nautilus pullover and stuff. So I got all the equipment that I need to work with. Personally, I don't do that much weights because what do I need from it? I need to
maintain your muscle.
I need to maintain my muscle mass. I need to maintain my muscle mass, and I need to do that without further irritating any old injuries and so on. So it's very limited. I can't overhead press. I mean, I can't even bench press with a barbell, but I do dumbbells like dumbbell press, pec deck, pull downs, rows with the machines, leg extension, leg curl. Twice a week, I go to the gym 40 minutes twice a week. And then bike riding. I do outside, got a lot of good hills here. I do outside bike riding. I do some Pilates yoga for the, you know, structural, internal muscles and so on. So I try to hit a little bit on each area.
If you could go back in time, is there anything you wouldn't do when you were up and coming with the way you trained to avoid injury or anything?
It's kind of two-way question, like, because I don't believe in changing anything.
Yeah.
Right? It's like your whole life is a tapestry and you pull out one thread and the whole fucking tapestry falls apart. So
let's just say hypothetically there's no butterfly effect where you don't like
then so
because a lot of people point to your training as an example of you do this to get the density and granularity that you'd want on stage, but then there's the other camp that's well,
so here's the thing, and I think I heard you talking about this maybe on Joe Rogan, and I was like, that's exactly right. In order for the muscle to get bigger, you got to lift more weight, right? You've got to put more resistance through it, however you see it. Yeah? And it gets to some point where the strength of the muscle maybe could outstrip the strength of the connective tissue, i.e. tendons. And I do remember reading something way back, about a study that they did with rats with some kind of anabolics, and the structure of the tendons on the rats was becoming weaker. So it could be the muscles getting stronger, the connective tissue getting weaker, but I was getting bigger, getting stronger, getting bigger, getting stronger. And at some point, like 93, when I won the Olympia, I was outsizing everybody. It was like a new level, right? So a friend of mine, he said, listen, man, you're way ahead of the pack. I think you should like cut back on that crazy ass training, man, because sooner or later that's gonna, like, nah, man, let's see. It's unnecessary, but let's see where I can go, if I can go further. And that's when I started to get some injuries. But the two major injuries I had, they're both last 6 weeks before a competition. So actually, I wanted to ask you about this, your opinion on this. And I've had like 3 or 4 guys that have trained with me, like balls out for years on end. None of my guys that trained with me ever got injured, apart from, some minor shit that happens, right? They never got injured, and I only got injured right before the contest. But I used to get so lean, like I'd be really lean 6 weeks out. And then at that point, I would drop all aromatizing compounds, right? And I'd drop in tamoxifen. We didn't have Arimidex or anything back then. So I didn't even have access to a blood test to show what my estrogen levels were. And our thinking was very simplistic. Anabolic testosterone, good. Estrogen, bad. Get that high, get that low, right? Very simplistic thinking, but that's the way, that's all we knew at the time, right? So tamoxifen to bring the estrogen down. So I tell people now, when you're getting towards a contest, and here's the thing, do you think that anti-estrogens, bringing that estrogen down low, and I don't know where that was because I didn't check it, but assuming it's very low, if that would somehow, and the low body fat, slight dehydration, overtiredness, not sleeping properly, all that stuff, it's just making you more vulnerable to injury. And I don't know if that the use of anti-estrogens is further weakening the connective tissue, but I suspect it might be.
Yeah, it's like anabolics can only help so much with tissue support, and when it comes to connective tissue, hydration, status, if you are like your estrogen would have been zero essentially because you had not only zero aromatizing drugs, but also the fact that you're on drugs to begin with means you're shut down. So you have no source of natural estrogen being produced either because you have no testosterone being made. So you're using other DHT derivatives or testosterone derivatives that don't convert to estrogen, whatever it may be. And you would already have zero estrogen. And then on top of that, you're antagonizing the estrogen action in the body of whatever is left, which is essentially zero with the Novadex. Like you are for sure above and beyond the dehydrating, like you are stripping the hydration out of your muscle dramatically and then imposing huge loads on the connective tissue that would make you significantly more prone to injury. Like that is something that
was my conclusion. And when I coach people now, that's how I answer the question. Would you change anything? Yeah, but let me change it for you. I advise you, and this is logic, I was being illogical. I was like, I'm going to train as heavy as possible right up to the contest, because if I don't, I could lose muscle. This was my mentality at the time. So I'm like, look, guys, why are we training heavy maximum to failure? To put stress on the body to stimulate muscle growth, right? Right. But what if we don't have the calories to do that? We're in a negative balance here. We've got no body fat. We're doing cardio. So you can't grow. You can't be an anabolic. You just best you can do is try to maintain. So let's shift the weight training towards, hey, I'm just maintaining now. The last 5 weeks, 6 weeks, where you start to get leaner and more vulnerable. And maybe taking all non-aromatizing compounds and an anti-estrogen on top is not a good idea. So you probably don't need the anti-estrogen if you're not on aromatizing compounds.
Oh yeah, it's totally counterintuitive.
And I mean, now you could go for a blood test and you could see where your estrogen's at, and then adjust your program and so on. But we were like shooting in the dark here, we were just guessing. So Yeah, take that from my experience, because it wasn't the training which was somehow incorrect and causing my injuries. It was my application of it, that I was still training as in the off season when I was on 7,000 calories and 1,000 milligrams of testosterone. Still doing the same thing when I'm on Primo, Anavar, and 4,000 calories and anti-estrogens, trying to do the same thing because I thought if I cut back a bit, I'm going to lose muscle. Well, maintaining muscle is quite easy, right? Maintaining it's easy. Yeah. It's building it is difficult, because I go to the gym and I see people maintaining there every day. I go in 12 months, the guy still looks the same, It's just, as long as you're putting some resistance through there in blood, you probably maintain your size cruising in. So I would...
How low did your calories get at your leanest? Because you said 4,000 going into a show.
Maybe that.
Damn, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I eat... I don't know. I don't count. I try not to count. It's like fucking turn that computer off. Like for 5 years, 6 years, I don't know how many years after I finished competing, because I was so OCD about everything, I'd go to a restaurant and I'd look at the plate and it's like 55 grams of protein.
Oh, you would just know it immediately.
It's fucking shut up, man. Shut up. I don't need you anymore. It took me a long time to get out of that. So I probably eat 2,500 calories now. But trust me, when I was 285 pounds, at 4,000 calories, I was fucking starving. I mean, I was hungry all the time. I was tired. I was hungry. I was like dragging my ass on that, because of my maintenance.
How much cardio did you have to do?
I was doing like, it was cardio, but it wasn't like intense cardio. It was just calorie burning. So I used to do fast walking or stationary cycling, 45 minutes twice a day. So I do an hour and a half, but the idea was this is just calorie burning. It's not taxing. So it's not going to interfere with my recovery from the weight training. I'm a bodybuilder. I'm not I'm not an endurance athlete. So I'm just using it. Isn't it better for me to walk for 45 minutes or sit on the couch on my ass for 45 minutes? I'll go walk. So it was cardio, but not like aerobic cardio. It was just kind of general calorie burning. If I was on the bike, I'd probably keep the heart rate 110, 115, something like that. So I was burning calories while reducing calories. It's like a little bit of both. And then theoretically, I could just drop the cardio when I got lean enough. I didn't need it anymore, but I found it almost psychologically impossible to do that. That's why I normally overshot like where I should have been, really, because I just couldn't stop that train once it was on the tracks. I felt like I should be doing something now. I mean, I'm going to like compete. I should be doing something. I should be... No, man, you've been doing something all year now. You can just cruise in. So, we didn't have any coaches in those days, at least not... I think only Flex Wheeler of all the top guys had a coach and a nutritionist. Nobody else. And, a few people made helpful suggestions, but I didn't listen because I don't know if I'm even coachable person, because I need to weigh everything up and make my own decision. So I can take suggestions from here, from there, and different places, but then I'll like shift through it all, and like ultimately I want to make the decision because I'm responsible here. I can't blame somebody afterwards. Like, he taught me to do that. Yeah, but you decided to do it. So if I had a coach, their job would have been to like calm me down and cruise, not to push me, type of thing.
Yeah. What was the exercise that tore? It was your bicep that was one of the injuries, right?
Now I can analyze it. As I started to get some rotator cuff issues with this left shoulder. So I was doing these barbell rows with a reverse grip, right, into the waist, so I could get the elbows back. And I really wanted to work on that lat thickness, the lower lat thickness, because the two guys that beat me in professional bodybuilding, Mohammed Benaziza and then Lee Haney, both of them, I looked at their backs and I was like, fuck, man, that's a thickness in the lower lats. So I was really focusing on that. So that's why I was doing the reverse grip and squeezing it back. And then I got an issue with this shoulder, a little pain, something going on. And I noticed when I went to grip the bar to do the rows, the left hand was not, I had to like kind of, twist it around a little bit. It wasn't really comfortable going there. So I was forcing it in a position it wasn't really comfortable because it was coming from the shoulder. And that was getting the bicep tight. Now I can see it all like a whole movie, right? What happened. And I'm insisting on rowing 440 pounds because that's what I do. You know, that's what I did in the off season. I'm not going down. I got to keep my strength up, right? So third rep, bang. I mean, you know that something's really seriously. I mean, you hear it, you feel it. It's like getting hit with an axe or something. It's painful, but it goes away quick. But it's the shock, and I'm like, fuck, my career's over. Over. That lasted for about 24 hours. That conversation. I'm like, how do you know? It will be if you believe that and you give up now. It will be. Yeah, but I'm the best. And I told him I can't do it. Try. So that's that's what I did. I did my best. But that could have been avoided by training a little lighter and higher reps, just because maintenance. Not you're not having to push here to create any growth. So that's. Then I switched to overhand grip as it didn't engage the biceps so much. I wanted to speak, Derek, about like your opinion now that, I mean, in my day, as I said, steroids was more like an inner circle thing. Some sports people, maybe, bodybuilders, gym culture. It's like a subculture. Now it's mainstream, right? I mean, you can see actors, you can see musicians use steroids because they want to get in shape quick, and this is a generation where everybody wants something really quick. So people use steroids. It's just like another cosmetic procedure, I suppose, right? Girls have Botox and tits and lips and all this stuff. Why a guy can't take some Anavar? And I think that's the attitude, right? But I wanted to know what you think about this. More and more females getting into PEDs or anabolics, and we talked about like when a guy's doing it and he want to get off it, and it's going to be tough, right? Because of the change in the brain chemistry, and he's losing muscle and his self-esteem maybe, and it's tough. But I'm kind of concerned, like the fallout from all the girls that are doing it now, and how they're gonna cope with that situation, because now it's also more psychological, because the effect on a testosterone substance on a woman's brain is going to be much more intense than on a man's brain. We got it anyway, right? So it's going to give you that that positive feeling, that confidence, and all that stuff. Not to mention the physical effects. You're going to get leaner, you're going to look better, you're going to get some abs and all that stuff. Well, all that's going to go down the drain when you stop. And so I don't know, man, like what advice have you got for people that at some point, we're giving advice to people, hey, maybe do this, maybe do that to be safe while you're doing it. But what about when you want to, like, at some point not do it? Like men, I suppose, can go on TRT, right? A man could choose to go on TRT. Like, I mean, what's a girl gonna do? That's I get girls asking me, like, I don't even do competitions. Some of them, oh, I'm a dancer, and my boyfriend told me to take some Anavar. What do you think? I'm like, well, first of all, do you know what that is? No, it's just going to get me leaner, right? Oh, I'm not talking about what it's going to do. I'm going to talk about what it is. It's a derivative of testosterone. Testosterone is a male hormone. This is a derivative of that. So, Did you know that? I didn't know that. I mean, it's so mainstream now. Like, people don't even know what they're dealing with and the possible consequences of that later on.
Yeah, I think anything hormonal in general, you should be as educated as you can before you subject your body to it. And for women in particular, yeah, these compounds, first of all, getting Anavar now is actually pretty difficult to get real Anavar.
Yeah.
So a lot of women are getting Winstrol or, fill in the blank other drug and ending up with side effects that maybe would have been avoidable had they had what they thought they were getting. So sourcing
Yeah.
is a big problem, whereas back in the day, you were a lot more certain that what you got was pharma grade when it was pharma grade. Now there's
Pretty,
even,
pretty much until like the end of the 90s,
yeah,
there were no underground products. It was all pharma.
not only is there underground labs now that you don't really know what you're getting unless you're third party testing it, but in addition to that, there are plenty of people that counterfeit pharma grade stuff and it looks very believable.
I know.
So
I've been
they
to
will have,
Mexico. I was in Mexico. Where was I? Playa del Carmen. I'm
oh, it'll
walking
have
down.
like a picture of Phil Heath on the
Yeah, a
store. It'll
massive
be
picture of
like,
Phil Heath. I took a picture with it. Like, look,
yeah,
yeah, but it says like
testosterone now.
Dinabal,
Yeah, yeah.
Anovor. Like the names are not even right. So they're not. You know, you couldn't even say you're bullshitting me because no, look, we didn't say Anavar. We say Anavor, or I don't know what it was,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't trust it.
No, yeah. So a lot of girls sourcing is an issue first off, but then in addition, I think there's a general lack of awareness, which is kind of, partly where my content is inspired from when I talk about PED stuff, is educating yourself about what it is first. Because women, not only are they subjecting themselves to testosterone derivatives, DHT derivatives, like you said, but in addition, what a lot of people don't know is that the birth control pills that a lot of girls are using are nandrolone derivatives. So I don't know if you knew that,
I didn't
but
know that.
literally, yeah, a lot of girls at like 15 years old are being put on what is essentially a nandrolone analog. So it's tweaked and modified nandrolone to
Yeah.
basically borderline castrate you. So that is like arguably, if
Is
not
that
more
is
so,
that the contraceptive pill that we've had for a long time, or is this a new?
yeah, yeah. If you look at like even
Wow.
Plan B, if a girl, wants to avoid pregnancy, look at
Yeah.
the active ingredient, levonorgestrel at like a megadose.
Yeah.
That is, if you look at the chemical name, you'll see 19-nortestosterone in the chemical name. That's where it's derived from. So a lot of this stuff is educating yourself, not just on the anabolic side, but also any hormones in general that you're subjecting yourself to. And I would say that birth control is probably a more prevalent issue among like Gen Pop
Yeah.
for women competing, perhaps, educating themselves about things like oxandrolone that they might be subjecting themselves to as well. Absolutely worth noting.
So there would be some
Because there's a
possible interaction between the contraceptive pill and the anabolics.
Yeah, well, one of the things you spoke to is as far as like suppression and what's it look like for a girl's testosterone
Yeah.
when she comes off. A lot of them don't realize they already been shut down this whole time
Right.
from the contraceptives they're on. So you take the birth control pill, your testosterone levels are probably down 60, 70% with your free test down as much as 80% in some cases, depending on the drug. So a lot of women are already in a state of like female, like hypo skedaddle the equivalent territory essentially.
So that would be have a
Uh,
depressive effect on your mood.
in general, like you will see a pretty significant prevalence of mood dysregulation, emotional, instability. I'm not saying it always happens. Some people get along just fine on
Oh,
birth control, and
this is
it
good
can
info
be,
because I got no clue about that, but maybe this is helpful for some of the, you know, the one lady that does actually listen to my stuff.
yeah, yeah,
97% male on my social media for some reason. But I'm sure there's
yeah.
some
Like,
girls that are listening that can benefit from this, and it's so important to get it out because it's something I've been thinking about for a long time. And a lot of girls approaching me, I'm like, shit, this is getting
one
so widespread now.
One thing I can speak to as a like unusual but helpful takeaway that a lot of women probably aren't doing, or maybe they are, but those who are going to take anabolics, using an app that checks the tone of your voice, it's a good way to assess masculinization of whatever you're using. So
Right.
rather than looking in the mirror and trying to subjectively assess, am I more male now? Do I have facial hair? Like obviously there's things you could point to, my clit is getting bigger than
It's not
I'm
necessarily a
used to.
bad thing.
Yeah, but there are
Has
certain
its
features.
advantages.
Yeah, there are certain features that in general are undesirable, but are hard to notice when you're seeing and hearing yourself
Yeah.
every single day. So sometimes you'll see a girl who's competing. and she doesn't realize it, but only months have passed, and then you hear her months later, and you don't even recognize the sound of her voice and the
No, because
vocal
it's
cords.
happening slowly, and
Mhm. And
also I
yeah, and
think
those,
it's like, what circles you move in, right?
yeah.
If you're in the gym world and it's quite normal, and you're around other people, you kind of
Oh, in the
don't notice
fitness
these things
industry,
so much.
it's super normal to be around
Yeah,
masculine sounding chicks who are on hormones. But
and
it's avoidable unless you're in like the hyper extreme open bodybuilding, women's division, essentially.
yeah.
Like there are you shouldn't have a bikini competitor ever having their voice deepened by taking too much anabolic steroids, for example. But it does
No, well,
happen.
I think the whole idea with creating new classes, especially for the women, was like, you had women's bodybuilding. Oh shit, they're getting too big, and the popularity is going down. Let's make some other class, like they had what, fitness. Oh shit, they're getting. And it's been like that until bikini originally was just like a young, healthy girl that's done a year's training in the gym, lifted some weights. She's got a nice shape. It's easy, accessible contest. You don't have to, train for so long. It's and the same thing with the men, with the men's fitness. It was just like board shorts and a guy with some shape and some abs. So that was the idea. But then, it's human nature, I suppose. Everyone start using something. So now the bikini girls are quite muscular. So I don't know what we have to do next. Bikini minus or something, like bikini light. I don't know what it is. Diet bikini.
I think the
It's
problem
it's never ending.
if they wanted to maintain a standard, they would have to not reward people for coming
Exactly.
in more jacked. So like men's physique, look at the first men's physique Olympia
Yeah.
versus now. It's like, holy shit, dude,
Now
they're
it
30
looks like a
pounds
Mr.
heavier.
Olympia competitor from 1985 or something. It's like
Yeah,
upper
yeah.
body.
A lot of these dudes could crush in, however many decades ago in like open class, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. It's just progression, right?
Well, it's the
Uh,
judging standards, I
yeah.
think, in terms of they see a guy coming in, well, objectively, he's more muscular than the next guy, so we're going to reward that, and then everyone else gets the memo.
Exactly.
What can
And
I
everyone
improve? Oh,
everyone has
I'm
to
up big.
step it up.
Yeah.
Um,
So,
so if a guy is coming off, I mean, I don't know what you think about PCT, HCG, and stuff. For me, I never felt good, and now I know why, because I tried it recently, and it shoots my estrogen like through the roof. So it's of no benefit to me, and I always felt like that. I didn't feel good, so I just used to like come off for a few weeks and then go back on. It's probably not the best approach. So that's my question with your research and everything you found out. Like, if you're cycling between the cycles, what would be the best thing to do? And if you're like, look, I've been doing this for a while. I'm a guy, I'm a girl, whatever. I'm not going to compete anymore. I'd like to just kind of like try to transition out of this as healthily as possible, physically and psychologically. Like, what advice would you give there?
well, one thing I could speak to first on the HCG, in general, the way people dose it is not necessarily, there's no set in stone way that is, this is the dose you
Yeah,
need for everyone. So for you, having disproportionate estrogen, it is highly dependent on A, if you're using testosterone alongside it, that's already aromatizing,
yeah,
and then also your frequency and the dosage that you're using. Because some guys, they shoot their testosterone maybe once, twice a week, which is a long ester. You might be able to get away with that. But in general, the more frequent and small the doses are,
yeah.
the less peaks and the more stable you can get, and the less aromatization you can get as well. So you could actually keep the same weekly total dose
But
but
split it
lower your
up.
aromatized, yeah, by going to
Yeah,
even daily
that's what I do with
administrations.
my that's what I do with my TRT now. After speaking to a few guys in the states that I think are cutting edge,
Yeah, so
I
with
take
HCG
50
though,
milligrams 50 milligrams 3 times a week and 150 milligrams a week, but spaced out. I get better
mhm.
results than if I just put it in
So how
one
are you
go.
dosing the HCG when you
It
used
was
it?
very like 500 whatever it is, IUs or whatever, 3 times a week. So it was really low dose.
Yeah, you might. I think the data shows that to maintain intratesticular testosterone levels with HCG, the dose is somewhere around 375 EOD every other
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
So it might have been you're just using too much, or you also had residual testosterone from what you were coming off of,
Right.
remnant that has estrogen alongside it. So you're not only naturally producing a bunch from your testes now from the HCG, but that's stacked on top of what you already had from your exogenous testosterone.
Got it.
So
Well,
expectedly, you're
well
pushing it. So
here's
it's
a question,
super.
Derek. So you want to come off your testosterone, whatever you're on. So you're
Mhm.
tapering off. You're going on to HCD. You're doing that for a period of time. So HCG, I believe, it works on the testes, right, to produce more
Mhm.
testosterone.
Yeah.
But the signal should come from the hypothalamus to the testes. So when you take that HCG away, are you not back to square one again? Like just going to drop down, or it's going to have some
I th
residual effect?
I think in general, the best approach that, or I wouldn't say best, but something I wish in hindsight that I did was maintain the structural integrity of the organ. So for me, staying on a small dose of HCG to maintain testicular size
Yeah.
and function during the exposure to the anabolics is almost your runway to make sure you have a smooth cycle off period after. Because if you're trying
Wow.
to come recover from really atrophied testicles, like you have a longer road to recovery, like you said, because now you're basically manually stimulating the testes, but you
Yeah.
don't have the signal naturally. Once you have that signal naturally, you don't necessarily respond favorably if your actual organ is not like structurally prepared to actually produce the testosterone from that signal.
Right.
So in general, it would be ideal to never let it dip below baseline anyways. But even if you were to be atrophied and you were to cycle off in general, I think HCG is a good approach. Alongside, you could use a SERM like a Clomid or an N-clomiphene to handle the feedback to the hypothalamus to
Okay.
avoid that shutdown. So you would actually be able to maintain and support the output of GnRH and then LH and FSH as you pull out the HCG. So that's in general the best approach that I've seen is
How
the
long would you
con.
run that for? Like after, hey, I've been competing for I don't know 5 years, taking stuff on and off and on. How long would that taper off period be to for the body to be able to start like running itself?
So at minimum, the amount of drug in your system is going to dictate how long it takes for feedback to your brain to stop in terms of the negative feedback that's shutting down the
Yeah.
HPTA. So if I'm on test E and EQ, test E has a
Yeah.
half-life of maybe 5 to 7 days. EQ is like boldenone undeslinate is like upwards of 15 days of half-life. So
Wow.
you could be looking at a clearance time of months before
Yeah.
it's no longer inhibiting you. So it's all going to be dependent on what you were on to begin with. But let's just say it's cleared. At that point, it's going to be how much has the organ's function sustained since your exposure. So if you have been on HCG since day one, it's probably a smoother and faster recovery
Right.
time than somebody who's trying to literally restore the mass of the organ from a shriveled up state. Like you might never get back to,
Yeah.
as good of a baseline as you could have. So it's highly dependent. And this is where blood work becomes so key because you can actually see, okay, output wise, in response to the HCG, like how much testosterone can I actually make when I'm manually stimulating the testicles? And then from there, you can start to keep an eye on the trends as you can wean off of it or come off entirely and see, do I have adequate signal now? What's my response to the
Yeah.
signal? Like there really is no way to say you're good unless you're analyzing with blood work
It
and
depends on the
diagnostic.
individual's response, but we're probably looking at like minimum 3 to 6 months, right? After.
Yeah, and it depends if your goal is just restore some level of natural testosterone function versus actual fertility metrics that
Yeah.
are acceptable. So fertility is like a whole nother story. You might be looking at a year plus before you have like a really good production with high quality.
Well,
Like
mine
I know.
was I don't know. I wasn't checking my levels at the time, but 18 months after I
Hmm.
finished everything, had my daughter. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
like some
year and
guys,
a
some
half.
guys I know who are blasting their faces off and still got their
Oh yeah, I got 5 kids.
their yeah. But then some guys who are trying everything under the sun
Yeah.
even came off their gear entirely and took over a year plus, and it's a
Well,
long, hard road.
some people have fertility problems regardless. Like,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't
Some
even do
some of it's
anything.
genetic.
Yeah.
Some of it's genetic for sure, but there's definitely a more intelligent way to go about the recovery
Is
phase
there
that
is there anywhere where people can go, like on your site or anything, to get more information on this type of stuff?
Yeah, my preventative medicine platform, Merrick Health, we have high-level medical providers that understand this stuff inside out.
Great,
So not
great.
only how to attenuate your risk as a elite athlete who might be subjecting themselves to performance-enhancing drugs, or just naturals who are looking to optimize quality of life and function, but also the fertility assessments. Like that is a super nuanced conversation to
Yeah.
make sure you're not subjecting yourself to unnecessary amounts of drugs, taking them in a suboptimal way, because these aren't benign drugs either. Like you can really fuck
No.
yourself up by taking serums long term, like Clomid. Most people don't feel great when they're on Clomid for a long, long time.
Yeah, I
So
never really used it. It was Clomid and HCG were, what people use for PCT, but yeah, HCG is the only thing that I used, and
mhm.
not for a long time. It was kind of cold turkey, but yeah, at least
Mhm.
things did kick back. Otherwise, I wouldn't have my daughter, which is
Yeah,
great.
one of the things that gets neglected too is the use of FSH. So people know HCG for its ability to stimulate testosterone production, but often forgotten is, like you said, it shuts down the HPTA when you're using HCG because it's a manual signal. That is a mimic of LH essentially, but you
Okay.
still have no FSH. So some people need exogenous FSH too alongside their HCG to get ideal fertility metrics and recovery. So some people who have been trying for a long time and haven't had success, sometimes they might just need, 75 IU or 150 IU every other day of recombinant FSH alongside the HCG.
Well, it's great that people have access to this information and all these tests and everything. So now you can see what's going on and you can react to it.
Hmm.
We don't have that, so great that you have that. And yeah, thanks for the conversation, Derek. It's been interesting. It's a good information uh, to get out there for people with PEDs. Uh, yeah, just monitor things, check your blood, see what's going on, and
Yeah.
try to, if you're gonna use it, try to use it as best and as healthy as you can, and that's it.
And get a
Um,
thorough baseline as well. A lot of people, this is
before you
something I
start
wish
anything, before you start
yeah,
anything, yeah, this is
yeah.
where you're at.
Because yeah, when something goes wrong, you want to be able to look back and see what happened and why. And you can't really do that if you don't have a baseline. This
Yeah,
is for anything, not just anabolics users, like somebody who's natural and has an issue with cardiovascular, kidneys, liver, brain, whatever. You would wish you had the most elaborate diagnostics prior to that happening to you
yeah,
to
absolutely,
analyze what went wrong.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're gonna do it, you got access to all this information, blood tests and so on. You can find online now. So there's really no excuse not to do that, guys. Derek, thanks for the conversation, man. It's been cool. Um,
Yeah, it's nice to meet you, man. Thank
I
you for
know you
having me.
went through your own thing as well, right? So how are you now? You were like jacked up before using anabolics, and you've gone through your own journey of like transitioning off and everything.
Yeah, when I was in my early 20s, I wouldn't say I pushed it super hard, but
Yeah.
pretty hard just
What's
to
pretty
see where
hard?
I could
What's pretty
like
hard?
a gram and a half of
Yeah.
combined
Yeah.
anabolics and some GH just to see what would happen. And I didn't have the genetic response that would, I feel, justify that long term because
Yeah. Continuing
at
it.
that
Yeah.
point, yeah, like at that point, you're just either impressing gym dudes or trying to win a competition. Like there's
Yeah.
not really any other reason to be using that much. So,
And the
you
thing
know,
is, I tell people like, I don't know if this makes sense physiologically, but uh, use as little as you can to get the results,
yeah.
because later on, maybe then you can use a bit more, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You only
I
have so much runway of organ health.
and
So make
do
sure
you
that,
like, as you get as you have more muscle mass, you think at that, is it just your body getting used to the compounds that you don't react the way that you used to? Like the first course that anyone does, it don't matter what it is, 15, 20 milligrams of D-bol, a shot of Deca, whatever it is, your first course, like you're putting on 20 pounds in a couple of months. That's just, you speak to people, that's like the average. Yeah, I put on 20 pounds in my first course and it was like a couple of D-bol or something. So now you have more muscle mass. Is it the fact that you have more muscle mass that would need you to increase the dose to get the same response, or is it just generally your body's getting, used to that dosage?
Yeah, like there are some mechanisms in the body to avoid getting too large. Things like myostatin. I'm
Yeah, there's a
sure
limiting factor somewhere there. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So there's counterbalance to try and prevent you from getting into a state that could lead to cardiovascular issues or what have you.
yeah,
But in general, yeah, like more drugs often can lead to a higher ceiling of potential, and it requires more input to actually get above and beyond that
yeah.
threshold that you plateaued at.
Makes
And but
sense.
sometimes that plateau is also food. Like some people will
Yeah,
not eat enough and they need to just take in more nutrients to actually take advantage of the existing dose of drugs they're on.
yeah. You gotta
And
have bricks to build a house, right?
yeah, like sometimes guys are on orals and it kills their appetite and then they're not growing anymore and they blame the drugs, they take more
Yeah.
drugs, and it's just a vicious circle when in reality you probably shouldn't have been on Anadrol for 4 months straight.
I think the oral steroids, it has some effect on your intestinal bacteria and so on. That's maybe why
Oh yeah.
some people it
Yeah.
leads to that.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of interesting literature on, liver toxicity and what could, be inhibiting appetite or things that come as a result of it. But in general, the things people notice are going to be, reduced appetite on things like Anadrol, D-bol, et cetera. It's pretty counterintuitive to building muscle in the off season if, you're
If you
not
can't
only
eat,
getting, yeah, and you're getting an inflated sense of this bubble thing. You get like
what
an
is that?
inflated I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a new Zoom feature, I guess. But
Okay.
like an inflated sense of how much weight you've gained because you have a lot of like fluff weight from the D-bol,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example.
yeah.
And then on top of that, you're not eating as much. You're not building like quality tissue necessarily in
Yeah, you're
terms
just going
of
up, storing more glycogen in the muscle and more water and more sodium, and you go back down
hmm.
again.
Yeah, like
Uh,
in general, I think most pros and guys who are even educating themselves now, though, are pretty aware to avoid oral 17 alpha alkylated liver toxic drugs in their off
yeah.
seasons because it's pretty counterintuitive. But yeah,
Yeah, I never had a problem with eating, but I didn't feel good on an Anadrol. I mean,
7,000
just
calories on Anadrol, bro. I can't even imagine.
yeah. But like with Dynabol and stuff like that, you feel like kind of a bit euphoric. You feel good, your mood
Mhm.
and everything. With Anadrol, like I felt strong as shit in the gym, but like after, outside is just a feeling of, you know, not
Yeah.
feeling great.
And that's another thing about the importance of estrogen is the reason people speculate why D-bol is so euphoric is the methyl estradiol that it aromatizes into.
Yeah,
It is very cognitively lifting, whereas other drugs you might not get that. Like estrogen's neuroprotective, cardioprotective, prevents you from
yes.
getting injured. There's a ton of benefits to keeping your estrogen where
So
it should.
when we're like taking anti-estrogens or Rimadex, Novodex, whatever people are using, as estrogen is protective for your blood vessels,
Mhm.
could that be something contributing to the heart disease, the inflammation in the
Oh,
endothelial
yeah.
lining, and all that stuff? You bring in your estrogen down too low.
One of the main reasons why low testosterone men have increased rates of cardiovascular disease is highly speculated to be the estrogen that comes from it. So it's not even necessarily the direct testosterone,
Yeah,
but it's the downstream estrogen. And a lot of people think as well, this is why women tend to live longer than men is well, obviously once they hit menopause, they would have a crushing of these, but the
it's the
estrogen levels are
estrogen.
far
Yeah,
more yeah, yeah. So the protective component of estrogen is huge for blood vessel integrity, endothelial health, etc. So
yeah.
I think a lot of people are
There's a lot of TRT doctors out there that I think they're giving a bad advice, because they're advising people to take aromatase inhibitors along with the testosterone to keep the estrogen down. But if estrogen is protective, like, don't worry about it. If it's a little bit out the normal range, it's probably beneficial.
Yeah, in general, I would say that if you push your hormones to a level that is out of normal, like you should expect a concurrent estrogen level
Yeah,
that's out of normal too.
to keep the
That's your
balance.
yeah. Now, I'm not to say that aromatase inhibitors have zero place, because some people genetically may be predisposed to higher rates of aromatization than the next person. But in general, for guys on TRT especially, like you're not pushing your doses high enough to where, in most cases, you need to be inhibiting it at all. It should be
No.
just a dose thing, a frequency thing, for the most part. And yeah, I think estrogen gets highly overlooked and demonized. I think it's becoming more well understood now, though, with some of
Yeah.
the content
As
coming
I
out,
said
and
back in the
even
past, we were very simplistic in our understanding. This is
yeah,
good, this is bad, you know? Get this up, get this down. It's
yeah,
a lot more complex than that. But
yeah.
yeah, great talk, man.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.